So, welcome back from lunch, and thank you all for being here. We are now in our concluding afternoon, and from here we have a panel and discussion called New Frontiers in Quality. We'll then have a short break, and we'll follow that with a French chocolate tasting. So, we have that to come this afternoon. When we were conceiving of this particular panel, it was in response to what we see in the industry as the fashionability or the trendiness of certain origins of cacao and the difficulties in accessing the market of other origins of cacao. And many of the origins that are possible to access in cacao remain under-popularized, I would describe them as. For example, one of my colleagues, Ryan Galt at the University of California, Davis, did a survey of craft chocolate bars and found that 25% of them use cacao from Madagascar, which of course we all know comes from, in general, one particular estate, the Aucassins estate in Madagascar, and then surrounding farms that sell their cacao to that estate. And thinking on that, we started to wonder, so where are the countries that we see currently less cacao from in the international marketplace, in specialty cacao and chocolate? And why might it be that these places are under-popularized in this way? And so in thinking about all of this, we decided that we would craft a panel that brought together people doing excellent work on quality in origins that are not seen as regularly in the specialty marketplace. And we're very fortunate that a wonderful group of speakers agreed to talk about the challenges and the successes that they face in trying to access the market, in trying to create new origins, popularize new types of cacao, and explore the many different flavors and stories behind this cacao. I think this goes to some of the questions that have come up already during the Conservatory, and my hope is that this will begin to provide some answers to the questions that we're all thinking about. To begin, I would like to introduce Marc Steen. Marc is the Chief of Party for CNFA, Cultivating New Frontiers in Agriculture based in Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire, of course, is the world's largest cacao producing country, but it is one that we see very little of in the specialty marketplace. And we're very honored that Marc agreed to join us and speak about the challenges and successes that he faces in his work in Côte d'Ivoire. Please welcome Marc Steen.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Carla. So, maximizing opportunities in cacao. I'm going to talk a little bit about our project, what we are undertaking at the moment in Ivory Coast. I work for CNFA. CNFA is a development organization, so I'm not a trader or an actor in the chocolate or cacao industry. I'm a development expert, and my expertise area is transforming and developing value change, specifically in African subcontinent. CNFA as a development organization has got, there's two things to do. There's this one as well, just to get a feel what we are about. So our vision is a prosperous world without hunger, and our mission is very much stimulate economic growth and improve livelihoods by cultivating entrepreneurship. So that's what we are all about as a development organization. I'm managing the project in Ivory Coast, and the objective here is to improve and expand the trade of cacao and cacao products and increase the income of 6,000 farmers households. That's basically what my job is, to make sure that we do something on the trade side while farmers are benefiting. And this is financed to USDA, so this is not USAID, which is basically the development side of the American government. This is the Department of Agriculture. So that's why the combined target of trade to the US, also to Europe, and of course improving income for farmers. We got about a $10 million budget for that, and we've got until 2021 to do so. So there's little time left. A little bit about cacao in Côte d'Ivoire for those who don't know. So there's about 3.6 million people working in Ivory Coast in the cacao sector. And of course Ivory Coast is known about the quantity. Yeah? We're talking about 2.1 million tons. 2.1 million tons of dried cacao beans is an awful lot of cacao beans coming out of the country. However, unfortunately, the income farmers get is about half the amount at the moment that they would get if we follow the living income standard. So there's still a lot to be improved for farmers. Farmers are aging, plantations are aging. That's an issue that's not necessarily new, but it's still there. Diseases, of course, are out there, unfortunately, and also farmers are dealing with poor cooperatives and farmer business planning. So there's still a few things to deal with in Ivory Coast. Just to give you a few more highlights about what we're talking about in the cacao sector there. So education level, for instance, and I mentioned it a little bit yesterday as well. Very few people have finished primary education. 65% of the farmers did not finalize primary education. Farm size is about 4.3 hectares, while almost 50% have got less than 3 hectares of farm. They get about $2,254 of income out of cacao a year, and the productivity is on average 500 kilos, but again, more than half of the producers get less than 400 kilos per hectare. So there's still a lot opportunity to increase that in Ivory Coast. 40%, Carla mentioned it, of global production of cacao beans, but definitely less than 5% in the quality flavor. Everything goes into the conventional market, and that's a main issue. Other countries are much better known for quality. Ghana, for once, that's just next door. So there's no reason why Ivory Coast couldn't be doing this, but it isn't out there. Other countries like Togo, Sierra Leone, Congo are all out there in the quality flavor market, but they don't really produce a lot of cacao. So Ivory Coast, in my opinion, has got some opportunities. What's the issues? There's limited market interest for now and linkages. So people don't really know, as Carla said, Côte d'Ivoire as being capable of producing quality flavor cacao. Limited production of the beans, of course, a result of little interest, no market, no production. Yeah? Nobody's going to invest in quality flavor beans if nobody wants to buy it. Traceability. Cacao doesn't have a very good reputation from Ivory Coast. Deforestation, child labor, main issues. So traceability is limited and needs to be improved. And then, of course, the environment. The government of Ivory Coast is basically targeted on how do you export 2.1 million tons of cacao beans a year. There is not yet any framework, or there are some frameworks in place, hardly used, to look at more specialty export channels or direct export channels where you can increase the relationship between the consumer and the producer. And finally, the market wants better quality, but they don't really want to pay for that. And that's an issue that we face quite a lot. I get a lot of complaints about quality. Yeah, it's moldy, it's rotten. There's 5% of stones and sand in my cacao and in the beans that we get. But listen, guys, if you want to improve that, why would a farmer do that? They're allowed to get 5% of impurity in their cacao, in their container. Why would they bring that down to 1% if nobody's going to reward them for that effort? So I think that's something that's a real problem to deal with. Nope. So what do? We work on a holistic approach. We need to have 6,000 farmers. We have different strategies. Quality flavor is one of the strategies. That's not all we do. But we definitely have a very holistic approach, meaning that the problem in a value chain is not one-off problem. Yeah? Farmers are not producing under par volumes per hectare because they don't know how to prune or etc. The problems are very, very more linked between each other. Sorry about that. For instance, many people get training, and the sector under Cocoa Action trained 150,000 farmers in 2017. 3% of those farmers really applied all that training. So basically, you trained about 140,000 people without real big success. Why? They didn't have access to other means like finance to invest on the training. So tackling the issue of one issue in a chain, in a weak chain, doesn't mean that you're strengthening the chain. You're just moving the weakest link along the chain. So we're trying to do that a bit differently. That's why we only have 6,000 farmers to deal with, because we're trying to do that more holistically. Work on all aspects of the chain. We're trying to develop opportunities in quality flavor markets. We always start from the market side. Doesn't make any sense to try to push farmers into producing something that doesn't sell. Yeah? So we're really working with them as soon as we've seen there's a buyer that is interested. Not for today. The buyer they come. They've been there. and we could start dealing, selling in a year or 2 years' time. But the relationships are being built, and the interest is being created. We work on improving the quality of the crop, and the production and the post-harvest handling, because that's important on the quality flavor. Get that standardized, get all the off flavors out, make sure that these elements are done systematically in the same way. Improve access to quality inputs and services. A lot of inputs are poor quality, false inputs, wrongly applied, and that doesn't help you getting better quality out. So the input side is equally important. Market linkages, of course, like I said, without market we won't be able to sell, so it makes no sense to invest. Farmers are organized in cooperative for a big part. The ones that we work with are organized in cooperatives, and those cooperatives are still operating at a low level of performance in some cases. We work with 24 cooperatives. We work with 3 specifically on the quality flavor, and we are making sure that they are able to deal with the requirements of the markets as soon as they start trading. Then we improve traceability and support direct exports. So the 3 cooperatives are involved in a program to get them into direct exports, a stronger relationship with the market, and making traceability easier to deal with. And of course, if you want to invest in quality, the word invest means that you need money to do that, so we're working on facilitating access to finance. We've got relationships with a number of finance institutions, with a number of banks, national, international, to make sure that those plans that we develop and that the producers and the cooperatives develop are going to be financed to implement. So where do we work in Ivory Coast? I need to go this one, yep. So we have 4 offices in country. We are in the east and the west. So the east is the traditional producing system with huge, bigger plots, bigger farms with more laborers on the farms. In the west, it's a little bit the new area where the last few 2 decades, cacao production has gone up tremendously, and there the plots are smaller. And we have in every region where we work, Abengourou, Daloa, and Subre, we have 1 cooperative that is specifically targeted for quality flavor cacao production. So what have we done up to now? Like we said, we started with market relationships. The Fine Chocolate Industry Association is one of our partners. They also believe, like we do, that Côte d'Ivoire should have a bigger share of the quality flavor market. There's a lot of companies member of that, so we're trying to channel as much as we can information about what we do and how we can further penetrate the market through them. Then we have identified producers and cooperatives with potential and ambition. So it's not up to us to decide who's going to do quality flavor, it's up to them. Everybody knows what they want to do for their future development. Also cooperatives are very much aware that some of them are interested in quality flavor, some of them are interested in direct exports. We're there to support. We're not there to tell them where to go. We present the strategies that we have at events like the FCCI meetings, and we organize country and cooperative visits. For instance, for Dandelion, Guitart and others have visited Ivory Coast. We help them to get connected and to understand better the environment, the possibilities of Ivory Coast. We've shared some baseline samples and we received some feedback. So we had some cacao liquor shared with a few companies, and of course the feedback was terrible. We hadn't started yet. You need to start somewhere. We knew that, and we needed that because the notion of quality flavor in Ivory Coast is not necessarily the same as here. Everybody thinks in Ivory Coast that the quality of the beans from Ivory Coast are the best in the world. It's the quantity that's really the highest, not necessarily the quality, but that's still under discussion. So we needed that kind of input to get a starting point, and that was very useful for us. And of course, we've done an exchange visit to Ghana, where they are at least better known for quality than they are in Ivory Coast. So we're trying to make sure that there is an exchange between successful cases and Ivory Coast. Also, with working with the cooperatives and with farmers, we've inventorized the ways how fermentation is going, and there was 15 different ways, just with the 3 cooperatives that we're working with, of how people ferment. About the timing, how often they turn the heap around, how many days they do it, etc. The volume of fermentation. So there's 15 different ways. So of course you can't get a standard, a regular quality, a level flavor out if everybody does it in a different way, and every time it's done differently. So we know that now, and now we can work on improving that. Learning by tasting, another element. Somebody asked about do farmers know what chocolate tastes like? No, they don't, because they produce it, but the market is not close to them. Yeah, the market is far, far away. Even the transformation into chocolate is far away. So of course they don't know. What they can know is what their cacao tastes like. And that's something we try to do to make understand what it means if you ferment too long, too short, if you over ferment, if you don't take out the placenta, if you don't take out the rotten pods, etc. All these kind of effects on quality is something that we try to explain to people, knowing what it takes to come up to a certain standard, a level of quality. We've now trained 1,000 people in all these aspects, and not necessarily me. I haven't trained her, but my colleague is here, Doreen. She's the one that does a lot of this work. So I'm very happy to have her here. She's an expert from Ivory Coast, and she's done a terribly good job in training people and doing this. And we organize experience sharing visits as well for the core. Oh, I'm not moving forward here. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Voila. So we've done work up to now. We've got a number of producers, a number of cooperatives that are fully engaged with us, that are on the same page, that want to move forward. We got a few businesses, a few companies interested, that are waiting for us to further engage with them in sending the products and the liquor out, the samples out of the work that has been done over the past months. And we will continue until 2021, accompany those cooperatives, those producers, to make sure that we get at a certain level, a standard level of quality and a certain level of flavor out. So we continue to train and monitor the targeted producers. We continue to work on the management, the traceability and the governance capacity of the cooperatives that we work with. Since September 2018, Côte d'Ivoire has got a quality flavor lab, so Côte d'Ivoire can do its own production of samples. They can do their own flavor profiling, and that's something that's really useful for us. And we have produced samples for flavor testing. We will produce samples for flavor testing in March 2020, which we want to share with the companies that have been interested and worked with us, and maybe new companies that want to start working with us. I'm very happy that on Friday I got the message that the Conseil Café Cacao, which is the big governing body that manages and controls the entire cacao sector, has agreed to our idea to organize a national conference on quality flavor production in Ivory Coast. So we will be having an opportunity also to discuss about the regulatory framework for exporting specialty cacao, quality flavor cacao, and the requirements the market have for that kind of export. So we're getting a little bit of momentum also at the government level, and that's very encouraging. And we want to see the first batch of quality flavor beans as a result of our work being exported by December 2020. And that was it. Thank you very much, and I hope you will be able to join us.
Thank you so much, Marc. Okay, so this gives you a sense of the different challenges and successes that one encounters in a complex situation such as Ivory Coast, particularly considering the history there, which has not linked the country with the specialty market. Next, we'd like to welcome Marlon Fernando Pangan, who is currently a graduate student at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Marlon is from Guatemala and has been deeply involved in the renaissance of Guatemalan cacao. Of course, Guatemalan cacao, there's no question historically that it was of incredibly high quality. It was, and it was prized by the Maya for many, many centuries. It is, as a result of many different factors, today less represented in the specialty marketplace. And Marlon is going to talk about his work in trying to understand why that is and how to change that story. Please welcome Marlon.
Thank you so much. So as Carla was saying, I am from Guatemala, currently at Illinois. A little bit cooler there with a lot of snow, but I like it. At least the first years has been good. And today, by looking at the title of the panel, I decided to talk about two main activities, I will say, or topics that I have been involved during the past, during the past months or years. And so my presentation will be divided in two parts. The first part is we'll talk about traceability, and this part comes from the presentation or the participation of Guatemala at the ICCO ad hoc panel in Ivory Coast early this year. And the second part, we'll talk about the flavor profile, which is part of my research dissertation that I am working with cocoa beans from Guatemala. So that will be the two parts that I will cover. For those that are not familiar with the what is the panel, so the ad hoc panel on final flavor cacao, it's the panel of experts that does the review of the Annex C of the International Cocoa Agreement, which has the list of all the different countries, exporting countries of finer flavor cacao. And Guatemala has been there. This is the list, and then each country has the percentage that it's that the panel of experts recommends as fine or flavor cacao. So, for example, here Guatemala, the first time that Guatemala participated was in 2016, and in that year we got 50% of, let's say, 50% was recognized as exported as fine or flavor cacao. And this year, after so many years that Guatemala was working and really pushing hard to develop the industry or the supply chain in Guatemala, we were hoping to get the 100% because a lot of work has been done in fermentation, in traceability, in market access, which was one of the weakest parts that we had in the previous panel. So we, as a country, we push hard to develop that part of the supply chain. So we were expecting to get 100, and then here you will see the list of the different countries that Guatemala export by destination, and that's something that wasn't there or wasn't like that like 6 or 7 years ago. But now it's improving. Guatemala is accessing to more markets, but we still, what we see here, we have El Salvador and Honduras, which are two of the common, let's say, markets that Central America used to have. And I will show you later the map of Central America for those that are not familiar with the region. But what happens here is that Guatemala has put a lot of attention on traceability and quality and market access in those countries, in Europe and in United States, in Asia. But we left out the traceability of the traditional market because that's the way it was like so many years ago. So, and actually this was the reason that why we couldn't get the 100% of requests as classified as a 100% of exported or fine or flavor cacao, because we did not have enough information to support that this cacao that goes to El Salvador and Honduras is of high quality. But we know that it's of high quality because it comes from the same plantations, it comes from the same communities that most of the cacao that is exported comes from. Maybe it went to the local market because the beans were broken, or some of the lots were not well fermented or slightly under fermented for the export, so the farmers had to sell it in somewhere else. But it's and that's the market choice, the regional market. But it's still fine. It has the potential, it has the genetic there, so everything is there. It's just slightly some changes that or some aspects that didn't meet the requirement for the specialty market. So that was the main reason. So we got 75% out of the 100 that we were expecting as a country after all the work that was done. And here we have the map of Central America. For those that are not familiar, we are in the as the name of the region is, we are at the center of the American continent, and Guatemala, it's the first country from the north to the south. So here is Guatemala, and we export traditionally to Honduras and El Salvador. This has been the traditional market, but now during the past 6 to 7 years, we are started to expand and to access to other countries due to that development of the industry of cacao in Guatemala. So one of the things that Guatemala will do is keep doing the good things that it's still doing, because that's the result of why Guatemala is getting into more countries, into more markets of higher value. It's because we are doing something better than we did 7 or 8 years before. So we are getting there. We are people is noticing our country now as a fine origin cacao. But we still need to improve and pay attention to the local market that we used to have, improve traceability to those markets, so we can improve as a country the classification as a fine or flavor cacao exporter. So that's something that Guatemala has to work on to improve the qualification for the next panel. So that's something that I wanted to talk about, because it's part of the whole system. The traditional market, even if it's export, for example, this export, it's officially export, so it's registered as an export of the country. So if we want to preserve the name of the country, or if we want to keep increasing the name of the country, we have to make sure that every bean that goes out of the country meets the requirements or has the traceability of being of high quality. That's why we know that we start doing things good, but we still have to do like everything good, so our reputation as a country will rise at the same time. So that's what I have for that part, and I wanted to share here all the key partners that have played an important role in the development of the Guatemalan sector. All of those organizations have been working so hard, some of them since 14 years, 15 years ago, and that's why we as a country are moving on, because there is a lot of partnership among these different organizations. And if you want to learn more about the development of the Guatemalan cocoa sector, you can contact those organizations, and there are two persons here that are key actors of the Guatemalan cocoa sector, and one is Eric that is here, and Roy also. They are two key persons that have been working in the cacao sector for more than 15 years. So they are, if you have any questions, you can ask them. They will for sure know the answer. So yeah, so that's the first part. So I spent around 6 years working in Central America in coffee and cacao. And then I was passionate about seeing the differences in flavor of my country. So I decided to move to grad school to start my PhD because I wanted to learn more about the flavor that we talk a lot in my country. So I decided to do, I am passionate about chemistry, and I said, well, I have to do something to learn more. And I like one quote that the team from that presented before mentioned that it says, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So yeah, so that was the reason that why I decided to do a PhD, because we talk about fine flavor, we talk about off flavors or about acidity, but I really want to quantify that to see how much is that we are talking about, because if we know what we have, we can work or build over it. So that's why it was the reason to orient my research in that area. And the potential title, it's flavor characterization of roasted and unroasted Guatemalan single origin dark chocolate, and it's a 70%. So here it's the map of the Guatemala. We have two different regions. We call this one the north of the north production region, and this is the south. And most of the production in Guatemala is concentrated in 3 states that sum up to 90%. And I decided, at the beginning, I was like very enthusiastic about my goals in research. And you know that you start like with big dreams, and then you have to cut them because you don't have enough time. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to make the flavor map of my country. That was the dream. And I say, well, I will do in my PhD the flavor map. And then I saw that it's a lot of work. So I decided to select one region, and it was the region where I am. I am from Alta Verapaz, so I decided to choose here. And also I choose this one because it produces around 31% of the cacao of the whole country. So it's, since I can't do the 100%, I decided to do one that maybe it's not representative, but it's at least has a story behind, and it's something. For example, I have to start in somewhere, so I decided to start there, and then start from there and show it as an example what we can do in other regions. So for my research, I am using gas chromatography, mass spectrometry. You can see this equipment here. That will help me to identify and quantify the different flavor compounds that are present in the samples that I am working with. But also I am using gas chromatography, olfactometry. And this actually is really interesting because you can see this is a sniffing port where you can actually smell the different flavor or volatiles that are coming in the sample. For example, what this machine does is that of course, I have to extract first the flavor compounds, and then I inject them in this machine. Oh, sorry. And then it separates all the different flavor compounds, and I am able to smell. As I am watching the different peaks, I am smelling it. So I can describe, based on my knowledge and based on all my experience, I can describe what flavor I am smelling, but also I can watch it. And that was something that I really was wondering, because sometimes I try the cocoa beans, but I want to see it. I want to like have an image about what it means. But now this is an example. It's a raw example of a chromatogram, and those different peaks are the different volatiles that are present on the sample. So now I can talk about flavor, but I can actually look at it and watch it and quantify it. Because what this chromatogram allows me is to, for example, if I look at the different peaks, I can quantify, for example, how much acetic acid is in the sample, or how much tetramethylpyrazines is in my sample. Although this is not other active compound, but it's an indicator of degree of fermentation, indicator of degree of roasting. So I can use this one as a target compound to measure fermentation or roasting if I want. So that was something that I thought that was very interesting, because the technology is there. The need is there. So how to connect those parts using the technology that is already that exists already and is used in different industries, and then how to adapt it to a country, or how to integrate it into the cacao sector. So then the work that I am doing currently is to identify and quantify the different pyrazines, and these are compounds that are developed during roasting process, but also are present already in the fermented beans. So the raw beans already have the pyrazines, but once you roast them, you to develop the flavor notes. So that's something that I am working so far. If I, for example, here H compound has its other description. For example, if you are talking about, or you are interested in about methylpyrazines, that gives the nutty flavor, the chocolate flavor, cocoa, roasted nuts. And then if you talk about the dimethylpyrazine or trimethylpyrazines, you have the different notes. These ones are from the same family, let's say, from the same group. That's why they share kind of the same notes. But if you switch to other groups, you will have the fruital notes, the I don't know, other different notes that you can find. And I decided to focus on this part first. And then I will move on to the next group of flavor compounds. And the interesting part about the pyrazines is that also you can classify the different origins. For example, if you create a ratio between two types of compounds, and based on those ratios, you can tell, or you can classify, for example, if the beans are from Ghana, from Grenada, from Ecuador, because they have different ratios in flavor compounds. So that's one way of comparing. For example, what I am expecting now, I will do the ratio between those two compounds and see Guatemala how is located against other countries, for example. So that way I can compare based on numbers or in quantities. That's what this graph is, and this is the source where I get the if you want to read more about it, this is the paper that I cite for that part. So I talk about roasted and unroasted. So quickly, I just want to show you here. The green, it's the unroasted, and the red is roasted. And then if you can see, I don't know if it's good, it's easy to see from there, but there are differences in peaks. There are sometimes the peaks on red are higher, sometimes the peaks on green, and all differences in color are the difference in flavor notes. Using the same beans, but roasting only one part, and then doing the flavor extraction in unroasted beans, because I also want to see how the roasting process will change the flavor of the cocoa. So that's all of what I have, and if you haven't been in Guatemala, you are missing to visit those places. So I encourage you to visit my country whenever you can.
Thank you so much, Marlon. I've been so excited to see Marlon's work develop over the years and cannot wait for his dissertation to be published. Take your time. I know that's a lot of stress. But as you can see, this is a particularly unique example where someone of a cacao growing region is taking on the task of mastering the science behind cacao quality. And it's exactly the type of thing that gives us a lot of hope for the future. Okay, next I would like to welcome Mathieu Bours of Le Cercle du Cacao, which is a boutique cacao sourcing, trading, distribution firm based in Belgium. Now, of course, we're talking about new frontiers in quality, and the question would be why Belgium if we're talking about new frontiers? But it's because here in Europe, what Le Cercle du Cacao has done has been quite significant in terms of education around cacao quality, developing new regions for export or import into Europe, and Mathieu's work has been highly academic in this nature. So we're very honored to have Mathieu here with us today to talk about his perspective on new frontiers in quality. Please warmly welcome Mathieu.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Carla. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Carla said, what we do at Le Cercle du Cacao is mostly sourcing and trading. We source what we hope to be specialty lots of cacao beans. And sourcing actually is pretty easy. So you travel a lot, you meet lots of farmers, lots of passionate farmers and producers. The tricky part is the trading area. Laser isn't quite working. But the trading is very, very difficult because one of the huge bottlenecks that we face and that I'm going to talk about is willingness to pay. We've had several examples of countries we visit. We meet a very nice farmer. Cacao is amazing. Post-harvest is nearly perfect. And then we can't market the cacao because we can't find any chocolate makers willing to pay the price for that cacao. So that's what we need, a third pillar in our activity, which is information, education, knowledge transfer. And that really comes from the fact that our sector, our industry, as in the cacao and chocolate industry as a whole, is quite segmented. A broad kind of accepted definition is that we have, on the one hand, commodity cacao, which would be called cocoa, and on the other side, you have specialty, what some people call fine flavor cacao, certified beans. The major difference between these two kinds of cacao is that one is fungible, the other is not. Fungibility is an aspect of a product, which means that any bean can be replaced by any other bean, regardless of its origin, regardless of who produced it, regardless of the flavor. In the specialty market, we try to avoid that through different kind of strategies, mostly related to traceability, to make that product unique so that we can't just make the same chocolate with a different kind of beans. That helps us bring the growers in a potential price-making position. If you can put in the same basket and put in competition a producer in Indonesia, growing a specific kind of variety, with another producer in Ecuador who's producing another kind of variety with another post-harvest protocol, you're basically telling them that they're making the exact same product, and that if they're not happy with the price you're giving, you're going to buy elsewhere. At the moment you deem their product a specialty lot, it's not possible for you to go elsewhere to buy it because you want that specific produced lot. And that helps them having some bargaining power. But how do we make specialty? How do we fight this huge, huge bulk of the market? First step is the market differentiation. So that's something that we've quite achieved as an industry because we have this bulk v fine, we have certification schemes, we have traceability schemes. That is kind of helpful, but it's only creating niche markets. niche markets that we have: fine cacao, organic marking, organic shops, craft chocolate. There's a huge discussion about what's specialty chocolate, what's craft chocolate, what's bean-to-bar chocolate. But that's not the purpose for today. But among any of these niche markets, you still need product differentiation. If you don't have product differentiation, why should I buy this specific bar from this specific farmer, from that specific chocolate maker, if I can have the same kind of product, which I deem identical as an end consumer, then you lose this willingness to pay. How do you differentiate product? So you have genetics. We've been talking about genetics in cacao in the last 10, 20, 30 years. We haven't seen much of improvement as far as end customer knowledge about that. And genetics is important because we need to know what we eat, we need to know what we grow and what we work with, but it is not the only important part of cacao. Origin is really interesting as well. When you say, I like wine, okay, that doesn't say anything. And it's the same with chocolate. When you say, I like chocolate, what do you like? Lately, we've been seeing in the supermarkets country branded bars. So this is a bar from Uganda. That doesn't tell me much. In Uganda, there are several different regions growing different kinds of cacao with different kind of post-harvest protocols. So we need more differentiation to get this specialty unique and unfungible lot. When we have that, we have a supply chain sustainability. And it's really important to stress that the sustainability for that regards the supply chain. There's nothing environmental about that. Identity preservation is paramount because that's the only way you can kind of convince your end customer that what you're saying is true, that this specialty lot comes from this farmer produced at that time. That's how you vintage. And that helps you having no direct substitutes. As long as you have direct substitutes, your lot is not a specialty because it is, in the eyes of the consumer, the exact same product as the one next door. And that's where we have cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? It's when you have a specific sets of beliefs and you are put in a situational judgment that makes these beliefs contradictory. There is kind of a paradigm in our sector that chocolate should be cheap. At the same time, we as a society have evolved to be willing to pay a bit more to feel like we are good people. We're talking about conscious consumption. So we want to buy things, but we want to feel good about what we buy. At the same time, a good person should care about the farmers. So this is a set of belief that a consumer could have. At the same time, they are faced with choices when they're in the supermarkets or when they buy chocolates. I saw a documentary showing unethical practices in cacao farming. So if I want to be a good person, I should not buy cacao that promotes or at least accepts these kind of practices. But I want my chocolate not to be too expensive because I want to buy lots of it. I want to eat lots of it. So bar A is more ethical, but it's more expensive. But I want the chocolate to be both ethical and cheap. That brings mental discomfort. That is cognitive dissonance between different kind of sets. And there is a nice image of how this little fox here, he's using rationalization to escape this. To escape mental discomfort, he actually changes the priority of his needs. He wanted to eat those grapes, and he's too short. He can't jump. He can't jump that high. So what does he say? Well, actually the grapes aren't ripe yet, so I don't want them. That's a very, very easy way to see how the mental disposition, the mental schemes that we have an action on our purchase behavior. One way to do that with the chocolate example is change your beliefs. So actually, there is no reason why chocolate should be cheap. And then there is no conflict between my beliefs and I will buy the more expensive chocolate. Another way is change your behavior. Well, either I don't want chocolate today, so I'm not going to buy, so there is no conflict between my different sets of beliefs. Or I won't buy the chocolates because this is too stressful for me to decide right now. Another way is to try justification. So either you justify your beliefs stating that they are not conflicting. For example, well, it's okay to indulge in cheap chocolate every once in a while. And that reminds me of what has been said this morning by many consumer who likes very, very fancy, very expensive specialty coffee, but at the same time, every once in a while, will buy the regular coffee. So we don't need to switch all the way. I'm not a specialty consumer or an industry commodity consumer. We are, as human beings, are plural, and we can have different kinds of consumer behavior. Another way of justification is justification of your beliefs by adding new beliefs. For example, if it's labeled organic or fair trade, I'm good. I don't have to think anymore. It's labeled, it's good. Another way is, I'm going to buy the cheap chocolate, but I'm going to buy the labeled orange juice. That's a way of rationalizing your purchasing behavior. And the last strategy, obviously, is just denying. I saw the documentary, but the documentary was false. It wasn't true. Or on the other side, I don't trust labels. Okay, it's labeled, but I don't trust it. So you see that the different sets of beliefs that we have put us in some kind of distress. And the brain works in such a way that we don't want to be stressed all the time. We want to find a quick and easy solution. That problem of rationalization is very tricky as far as chocolate is concerned, because through that, the willingness to pay of the customer drops. The certain amount of money that the customer is willing to pay for a chocolate, if he doesn't see the difference, is very, very low. That puts a price pressure on the chocolate supply chain and obviously on the cacao supply chain, and ultimately it's very difficult to ensure a high living income to the farmers when we have so much pressure at the end of the chain. And that is one of the reasons why, for us as traders, it's very difficult to market a cacao that we find is amazing, but we can't market it because it is too expensive. The chocolate maker will not be able to raise the price of its bars because no one is going to buy it. That is very tricky, and so we need a paradigm shift. We need to reinvent value. We need to bring all the stakeholders together. We need to reinvent the system. One way to bring value is through knowledge transfer. Value is a product, so you have a product, you sell it to a certain set of people at a certain price. That's where willingness to pay enters. And it has to fulfill a need. That's the purpose part. So we have different kinds of way to do it. One of the way is to ask lots of questions. When you ask questions, you have knowledge transfer that helps either add beliefs or prove that some beliefs were flawed. Stakeholders, having everyone involved through knowledge sharing, through trainings, through genetics trainings, through explaining to the consumers that commodity and specialty aren't the same and shouldn't be the same in their mindsets. They shouldn't treat specialty chocolates with the same sets of beliefs as they are evaluating commodity chocolates. So here we have another way to differentiate through information as a system. The sector is very segmented. We should embrace it. There is a place in the chocolate market for bulk cocoa. There is a mid-market with a few or very little information. There is an upper mid-market for more information, and there is the identity-preserved market, single origin specialty for utmost luxury and utmost quality, you name it. New frontiers in cacao and chocolate. Just to sum up, market differentiation will be crucial. Because if we don't embrace the heterogeneity of our market, we'll always try to say who's wrong and who's right, whereas there is a market for every kind of cacao that we can find. Product differentiation is basically the same. If in the eye of the customer there is no difference, you can add as much value as you want, this is irrelevant. If the end customer doesn't realize this is specialty for A, B, C reasons, he's going to use the commodity mindset to make his purchase decision. And knowledge transfers, obviously, because that's the only way to bust a few of those beliefs that chocolate should be cheap, that specialty per se needs to be more expensive, that specialty means good chocolate and good taste, that industry means bad taste. All of these go through knowledge transfer. And a couple of the challenges that we have to face in the future speculation. We've seen an overload of fine flavor cacao and fine flavor chocolate in the supermarkets. Again, that's very blurry for the end customer. What is and what is not fine flavor? What is good chocolate? What is not good chocolate? And this overload of dubious claims that we see with invention of new varieties, with inventions of new traceability schemes. It is very, very difficult for when you're in a multi-criteria purchasing behavior to see clearly and to make the choice you actually really want to make if you keep having lots of information that are basically noise, in which case you don't even see which information are pertinent and which are irrelevant. Yeah, that was it for me, and looking forward for questions afterwards.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mathieu. Yes. All right, if you'll give me just one moment, I'm going to switch our slides. Okay. Now, for our next presentation, it's an honor to welcome Dr. Adriana Reis Ferreira of CCI, the Cacao Innovation Center of Brazil. The Cacao Innovation Center of Brazil is one of the newest and also most successful spaces for quality education and improvement in a cacao growing region. And they've come to me to be a model for possibilities for many other countries. And that's largely because of the work of Dr. Adriana Reis Ferreira. She previously worked at the Instituto Cabruca, which was focused on the preservation of the Cabruca agroforestry system in Brazil, working with small farmers, supporting them in making chocolate from their own cacao. And she has continued her work in this vein at CCI. If you don't follow her on Instagram, you must follow her. She has maybe the best cacao Instagram there is. She's Adriana Reis Ba, or maybe Adriana Reis Bahia, no? And she has very graciously agreed today to allow me to translate for her from Portuguese. So we're going to present a little bit together, and then I hope maybe when I go to Brazil, I can ask her to do the same for me. Okay? Obrigada, Adriana. Please welcome Adriana.
Muito obrigada, Carla. Acredito que vamos fazer uma palestra na língua do cacau.
Yes, she says, thank you, Carla. We're going to do our lecture in the language of cacao.
Então, o cacau do Brasil é um cacau que está passando por um momento muito positivo. Na década de 40 era um cacau muito apreciado.
All right. Cacao from Brazil is in a very important moment, a positive moment. And it,
40?
Since the 40s, the 1940s.
Sim, e a gente passou por uma grande crise na década de 90 por conta de um fungo da vassoura de bruxa. Provavelmente muitos sabem disso, e estamos agora retomando a produção num momento muito positivo, e tivemos uma pequena queda em 2016 devido a uma crise hídrica, mas nada que não vai nos deixar para trás. A tendência é continuar crescendo.
So many of you must know about the crisis of witch's broom, which caused a massive fall in the production of cacao in Brazil. There was also additionally a challenge in 2016 due to a water crisis. But today we're in a very positive moment in Brazil where we're seeing the upswing, the increase of cacao production once again.
Nós temos dentro do país um contexto muito interessante, porque nós temos uma força ambiental muito grande. As origens produtoras estão em áreas de grande conservação ambiental, que é a Amazônia e o bioma Mata Atlântica.
So we're in a very interesting and special moment in the country because there are two major growing regions, the Amazon region and then the Atlantic rainforest region, which is in the Bahia area. And each of them have very different ways of producing cacao.
E nós temos duas vias opostas de produção. A primeira, essa foto é uma foto do cacau cabruca, como a Carla falou, que é uma área de grande proteção, presta um serviço ambiental muito grande para a Bahia. E a segunda área é também uma área dentro da Bahia de um cacau a pleno sol, altamente produtivo. Então, o que fazer? Produzir mais para ganhar mais ou produzir conservando para receber mais?
what you find in Brazil is two opposite, opposing ways of producing cacao. Each of these images is from Bahia, in the northeast of Brazil. On the left side, you see the traditional Cabruca agroforestry system, which is conservation of the environment. But if you look on the right, what you see is a full sun plantation for cacao, which produces more and pays better, but of course is not conserving the environment in the same way. The question becomes, what do we do?
Como encontrar o equilíbrio?
How can we find an equilibrium?
Então, nós temos 3 grandes origens dentro do país, que é a Bahia, o Espírito Santo, o Pará. Temos também outras regiões que produzem cacau.
So we have 3 major regions producing cacao in Brazil. We have Bahia, Espírito Santo, and Pará. And then we have 2 other regions, Amazônia and Rondônia, also producing.
Somos um país muito grande, muitos países dentro de um só.
We're a very big country with many countries inside one country.
E, diante disso, a gente começa a tentar se diferenciar através das certificações de origem, que são as denominações de origem, e hoje o Brasil possui 3 denominações de origem que protegem a nossa história, a nossa cultura, a nossa qualidade e a nossa biodiversidade.
And what we have been doing is to protect our culture, our biodiversity, and more. We've created 3 areas of geographical indication in Brazil.
Essas certificações também têm um objetivo de proteger a nossa questão social e a nossa questão ambiental.
And these 3 geographic indications are certifications that are designed to protect both social and environmental causes.
É importante falar também que as regiões produtoras são muito distantes. Então, produzir cacau na Bahia, que é onde tem o polo moageiro das multinacionais, fica a 4.000 quilômetros de distância do cacau da Amazônia, por exemplo.
So, for example, it is 4,000 kilometers from Bahia to Amazonia, a major distance that makes these types of certifications difficult to complete.
Exatamente. Aqui é o tipo do que a gente está fazendo na questão da rastreabilidade das indicações geográficas. Eu trago o exemplo do Cacau Sul da Bahia, que está trazendo sustentabilidade, inovação e rastreabilidade na forma de comercializar amêndoas de cacau.
And what you see here is the example of the indication, the geographic indication of the south of Bahia that brings traceability into the cacao production.
Quem tiver curiosidade para acessar o QR Code, só acessar, ela tem uma página traduzida para inglês, e esse QR Code ele vai ser levado para embalagem de chocolate.
And for anyone who has an interest, you can use this QR code. It will bring you to a page that's translated into English and provide you with information about this particular origin.
E agora eu quero falar um pouquinho e trazer vocês para vocês entenderem como a gente está produzindo esse cacau e esse novo momento do Brasil, que é um momento muito importante. A gente tem aqui o nosso precursor desse movimento, que é o produtor João Tavares, que está aqui presente hoje. Cadê João? Está ali. Né? Ele conta essa história muito bem.
And so now she'd like to tell you about the story of how cacao is produced in Brazil. This picture is of João Tavares, one of the predecessors of cacao quality in Brazil, who's also here with us in the room today. Olá, João.
É um trabalho que exigiu dos produtores do Brasil muita mão na massa, né? E o João fez isso e estimulou muitos outros produtores a também trabalhar muito pela qualidade.
Many producers have worked a lot for cacao quality, and João's work has paved the path for many others to follow.
Então, o que eu quero contar a vocês é que a nossa genética, ela misturou muito, né? A gente encontrou na crise uma grande oportunidade.
The genetics in Brazil have mixed very deeply, and while this could be a crisis, they see it as an opportunity.
Por conta do trabalho de melhoramento genético para resistência à doença, nós misturamos muito a nossa genética com híbridos de trinitário e, por conta disso, hoje a gente tem uma rica diversidade.
And because of the witch's broom crisis in Brazil, there was a major mixing of different diversities of cacao, including Trinitario hybrids, that has today led to this great genetic diversity in the country.
Então, hoje o Brasil não pode ser reconhecido por produzir somente cacau melonado.
So now Brazil cannot be known only as a producer of a melanado variety cacao.
A gente tem muito trabalho no estudo, a gente tem um banco de germoplasma muito grande, riquíssimo, um dos maiores do mundo.
And Brazil has one of the finest banks of genetics in the world that is very rich in its diversity.
O que traz um potencial de sabor, principalmente em polpa, muito rico.
Por favor, outra vez.
potencial de sabor de polpa, da polpa.
And there is a great potential in the flavor of cacao pulp from Brazil.
Sim. E a gente tem um modo de saber muito cultural e tradicional. A gente faz cacau de forma, em biomas diferentes, de forma muito tradicional. Aqui é uma foto do processo de pós-colheita na Bahia, ali na Amazônia, onde, em algumas épocas do ano, mais de 6 meses, as áreas de cultivo estão alagadas.
And you can see here the richness of the culture and tradition of cacao production in Bahia, and the many different technologies of post-harvest mechanization that are used in this region.
O que torna esses tipos de cacau produzidos no Brasil muito diferenciados, muito diferentes entre si.
And there's a great diversity and differentiation in the varieties and ways that cacao is produced.
A gente também está inovando nos arranjos sociais.
The people have also created a number of different social groupings around cacao.
Nesse momento, a gente está consolidando arranjos produtivos de produtores com foco na exportação de cacau de qualidade, de cacau fino. E aqui eu cito 2 exemplos. O exemplo do consórcio Cacau Bahia Especial, que também tem produtores aqui presentes hoje, que visam se exportar juntos, mas preservando a individualidade de cada fazenda.
And what you can see here are 2 examples of groupings of people who have come together with the goal of exporting and improving the quality of cacao.
E embaixo, a rede Povos da Mata, que é uma rede ligada à agricultura familiar, e que são 300 produtores de cacau orgânico.
And what you see on the bottom is the network of Povos da Mata. It's a group of 300 family farmers that have come together to produce organic cacao.
O mercado interno do Brasil é um mercado muito interessante. O Brasil é um dos maiores produtores de cacau do mundo, mas também consome tudo que produz.
The internal market for cacao in Brazil is quite interesting because Brazil is one of the largest cacao producers in the world, but also consumes all of the cacao that it produces.
Então a gente precisa importar cacau. Então esse mercado é um mercado muito aquecido.
And so, as a result, Brazil actually imports cacao, and this is a very complex market.
E nessa perspectiva, a gente tem um mercado de orgânico interessante, com instituições que produzem cacau e com empresas bintubás que compram cacau, já chamando a atenção das grandes marcas, como a Nestlé, que agora está começando a lançar uma linha especial de cacau de qualidade com o cacau orgânico dessas 3 associações.
The domestic market has allowed for the development of very large internal Brazilian brands. You can see 3 of the main brands here, Ama, Chocolat, and Nestlé. And Nestlé in particular is in the process of launching its own bean-to-bar chocolate brand in Brazil.
E o caso da Dengo, que foi apresentado aqui no primeiro dia, que é um caso bastante transformador, realmente entrou no mercado para transformar e tem o foco na padronização e da consistência do produto e na valorização do produtor e pagando prêmios especiais, o que fez realmente com que os produtores do sul da Bahia aumentassem seu volume de produção de cacau de qualidade.
We have the case of Dengu, which you learned about yesterday, which is focused on quality and has a transformative effect in the Brazilian market. They're very much working on the valorization and bringing premiums to cacao producers in the south of Bahia, while also working on the development of consistency in the end product for consumers.
Então, hoje, o mercado do Brasil ele está focado em história e origem, e nós temos marcas muito interessantes, como o Cacau Unique, que é uma marca de confeitaria, e que leva essa história desses produtores para a capa e leva a origem. O caso da Dengo, que leva o produtor para a barra de chocolate. O caso das marcas de Bintubá, eu trago a Luísa Abraham, que fala muito do cacau selvagem da Amazônia, e também é um grande case, já premiado, e valorizando a questão da história, do produtor e da origem.
And so the market today in Brazil is very much focused on the story of the origin. In other words, they are working to appreciate the origin, offering the possibility to tell a story. And this is very much focused within the segments of bean to bar and premium chocolates. The 3 examples that you see here are from Harold's, which is a line made with fine cacao from Bahia and Pará. You can also see the example of Dengo chocolate, which we've already discussed. And finally, the chocolate of Luísa Abraham, which offers consumers an opportunity to connect specifically with Selvagem Cacau do Amazônia, which is the wild cacao of the Amazon.
E nesse mercado do movimento Bean-to-Bar é um mercado muito interessante porque ele só cresce dentro do Brasil. Hoje já são mais de 150 marcas dentro do país. E para vocês terem ideia, só na Bahia 70 marcas.
So incredibly, this is an exciting part of the bean to bar market in Brazil because it only grows. It continues to grow and grow. There are more than 150 brands today in Brazil.
70.
And 70 in Bahia state alone.
Todas essas marcas, elas têm o foco na origem e elas se relacionam muito bem com o movimento Bean-to-Bar, exemplo do FCCI, e isso é muito interessante para o mercado.
And this has been very interesting for the market because all of these brands are focused on origin and on linking with the broader specialty market.
Dentro do case do cacau fino, a gente chama atenção porque nesse momento a gente acaba de entrar, assim como a Guatemala, dentro da lista dos países produtores de cacau fino. Agora 2019 acabou de ser publicado como um país 100% exportador de cacau fino. Com muita alegria a gente recebeu essa notícia.
In the case of fine cacao, Brazil, like Guatemala, has recently been added to the ICCO ad hoc panel list of fine flavor cacao. In this case, Brazil has been recognized as a country with 100% fine flavor cacao, making this a very important moment for the country.
Diante disso, o Centro de Inovação do Cacau visa fortalecer estratégias que apoiam os produtores. Uma dessas estratégias é o primeiro concurso nacional de qualidade, onde em 2018 nós premiamos 6 amostras. Dessas 6 amostras, 2 amostras foram selecionadas pelo COEX para receber o resultado final agora, dia
And
30.
one of the ways that the Cocoa Innovation Center has been working to improve quality and support cacao producers internally in Brazil is by holding the first national competition on quality. And there were 16 amostras, não é? Six samples that won, and 2 of them have been accepted to the Cocoa of Excellence Top 50. And of course, you'll hear the results for that tomorrow night.
João Tavares e Fazenda Panorama, que está aí com o Elton. Os dois estão aqui.
And the 2 accepted are here, João Tavares again, and Fazenda Panorama right next to him. Parabéns!
Em 2016 nasce o Cocoa Center, que é uma startup muito recente, com foco em análise físico-química e sensorial de cacau e chocolate.
In 2016, they opened this Cocoa Center, which is focused on physical and chemical and sensorial analysis of cacao quality in Bahia.
Em Bahia. O foco é nacional, mas nós estamos sediados dentro da Universidade Estadual de Santa Cruz e temos toda a estrutura de análises. Na verdade, nós somos um laboratório como outro qualquer de análise, onde usamos a ciência a nosso favor. O que a gente tem de diferente é que nosso foco são em 3 linhas de atuação.
Okay, and so in this laboratory, they're nationally focused, but they're sited in the University of the South of Bahia. And much like you saw in Marlon's presentation, they're able to do a variety of different chemical and biological analyses of cacao. In particular, they're focused on 3 areas of actuation.
A qualificação, que são os serviços de análise, onde o produtor entrega a amostra e a gente gera um laudo, registrando análise físico-química e sensorial.
So quality or qualification, looking at physical, chemical and sensorial analysis of the quality of the cacao.
Treinamento e capacitação, onde a gente treina os produtores que precisam dar um salto e elevar a qualidade.
Training and capacity building to disseminate knowledge to support cacao farmers in quality.
E o sourcing, que a gente liga as pontas, que é a grande estratégia do SIC, que é encontrar onde estão esses produtores, que tipo de cacau eles produzem, que qualidade eles produzem e ligar eles ao mercado.
And sourcing, in other words, a major strategy of SIC is to work to find cacao producers, determine what type of cacao they're producing, what the level of quality is, and then appropriately link them with the market.
Como no caso da Dengo, que apresentou ontem, nós fazemos toda a rastreabilidade do cacau de qualidade deles e quando o padrão do produtor bate com o da Dengo, a gente liga as pontas.
And just as you saw with the example of dengue, yesterday SIC does all of the quality analysis of cacao from this region of Brazil. When they encounter a sample that meets the standards that dengue has sent, they then link dengue to that cacao producer to make the sale.
Aqui é um pouquinho do que a gente faz, porque, na verdade, a gente é um laboratório, mas o que está por trás do laboratório é uma inteligência, que é o nosso banco de dados. O banco de dados tem a provocação de ajudar realmente o Brasil a dar o salto de qualidade. Então, dentro do banco de dados, a gente consegue rapidamente analisar safras, por exemplo, como os produtores estão se comportando ao longo da safra, quais são os grupos de produtores que precisam melhorar e o que a gente tem que fazer para agir, para melhorar, para que eles possam melhorar a qualidade das amêndoas.
And here you can see one example of the type of work that they do. What they're doing is collecting different analyses and putting them into a data bank that allows them to then compare the work of one producer with others, determine how they might rewind in the process of cacao quality and production, and then engage that producer in improving the quality of their cacao over time.
O segundo gráfico, por exemplo, mostra desde o início do SIC, 2016 até 2019, o salto de qualidade dos produtores. Cada pontinho é um lote que entrou no SIC para avaliação. 2016, os produtores atingiam qualidade de amêndoas bem fermentadas entre 40% e 50%. E hoje a gente já tem um perfil muito mais elevado e muitos produtores já conseguem atingir percentuais acima de 65%.
So if you look here at the second graph, the one in the center, you can see quality improvement over time by farm. What's indicated here are separate lots and the level of fermentation from 2016 up to 2019. And you can see with each year that passes, the level of fermentation improves. If you then look to the right graph, you can see quality and imperfections and see that the amount of quality over time and the lack of imperfections has been improving.
Então, por exemplo, eu consigo mostrar que tem um grupo ali de produtores que atendem um critério específico de um cliente que me acessa, ou um outro gráfico que vai me dizer que aquele grupo ali precisa de uma capacitação específica em fermentação.
And using this database, they can then see a group of farmers that have the potential to access the premium market and also find a group of farmers that need to work for improvement in their cacao quality.
Ou, se algum cliente desejar uma informação de uma variedade genética específica dentro do meu banco de dados, eu consigo dizer, através do sistema, qual é o volume do lote, qual é o percentual, por exemplo, de cacau albino, que é uma tendência de mercado hoje no Brasil. A gente tem uma variedade chamada catongo, que é 100% branca, tem notas muito suaves de sabor, e ele é muito procurado, então eu consigo rapidamente dizer quem é o produtor, onde ele está e qual é o peso do lote.
This database also allows for specific requests to come in from potential buyers of cacao. For example, today in Brazil, albino or white cacao of the catongo variety is quite popular. It's known for having a very smooth and delicious flavor profile. A customer can say, we would like to identify a producer producing high quality catongo. Can you connect us? They can look into their database and say, yes, you can go to this particular sample, this particular producer, and direct the market there.
Agora a gente está trabalhando na formatação do nosso blockchain e todos esses dados vão cair dentro da plataforma e nós vamos tentar entregar o resultado para o mercado de forma mais rápida e auxiliar o mercado a encontrar o padrão desejado.
And now they're working along with Dingo and others to create a blockchain database that would allow for full traceability and to find individual producers of individual lots of cacao.
No caso das análises químicas, a gente também trabalha com as análises de cromatografia. Estamos fazendo todo o rastreamento da qualidade química do cacau brasileiro. A gente tem um trabalho fortíssimo na área de metais pesados, por exemplo. Fizemos mais de 500 análises em metais pesados em 2019. E, não, por exemplo, no caso do cádmio, a gente viu que não encontramos nenhuma análise com alto conteúdo de cádmio. A gente entende que isso são formas de nos diferenciar no mercado.
You can also see here some of the equipment that they use, much like we heard about in Marlon's presentation, to do chemical analysis of cacao. One of the areas of investigation that they have explored is that of heavy metals. They conducted more than 500 analyses of cacao samples and determined that in the case of Brazil, they did not face a serious problem in relation to cadmium, and this now has become a way of differentiating Brazilian cacao in the market.
No caso do headspace, da cromatografia gasosa, estamos usando os dados para diferenciar as origens. A gente sabe que a gente tem, Carla conhece muito bem o Brasil, mas sabe que a gente tem nas suas origens flavors muito diferenciados. O caso da Bahia, que tem um cacau com notas de frutas marrons, muito diferente do cacau do Pará, que já tem notas frescas, mais suaves, terrosas. O Espírito Santo, que também tem notas de frutados. Então, a gente tentar encontrar quais são as especificações e traçar um fingerprint de cada origem.
In the case of this equipment depicted on the right, the headspace machine, this is being used to corroborate sensory analysis. So for example, Brazil has great differentiation between different origins, especially in relation to flavor. Bahia is known for brown fruits, for example,
Frescas.
yeah,
Cítricas.
fresh fruits, and Espírito Santo é mais
Frutado também.
yeah, okay, so it's also a different type of fruit, but by using this chemical analysis, they're able to link up the sensory analysis with the chemical.
Então, a gente segue conectando. Aqui são dados recentes. Nós já fizemos mais de 3.500 análises dentro do SIC esse ano. Subiram 20% desde 2016. Mais de 500 produtores que acessam hoje nossos resultados. Dentro dele, muitos são orgânicos e o foco nas análises.
And you can see here the growth of SIC over time. Since 2016, they've had a 100% increase in analyses and have completed more than 3,500 with different farmers. There are 500 farmers using SIC services. That's a 20% increase since 2016. And 300 farmers have become registered as organic through the Povos da Mata group, which allows everyone free access to the quality reviews conducted at SIC.
Esses são nossos parceiros. O que a gente faz de diferente é apenas vender informação técnica e conectar as pontes, né, as pessoas.
And you can see the different partners represented here, all of whom are linked in with the technical people and are sharing information with one another.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd now like to invite our panel to come to the stage so that we can discuss together. Okay, thank you all so much for this fascinating discussion. I would like to ask first, I know that each of you has worked in different origins where you may face a particular stereotype or a preconception about the place where you're working. Would you be willing to share with us one that stands out to you as particularly negative about the place where you work and that you would like to contradict based on your own experience?
Eu posso começar. Ideias
Adriana's ready.
negativas do cacau brasileiro temos muitas. O Brasil tem uma ideia de que o produtor ainda é um grande produtor de cacau, né? E isso não é verdade. A gente tem produtores que saíram de uma crise e aprenderam a se diferenciar de forma muito inteligente e estratégica. E a gente é considerado um cacau ácido, com aroma de fumaça e de pouca qualidade. E a gente tem casos como o João Tavares, como a Panorama, como o Cantagalo, que mostram diferença, como o Lajedo de Ouro, que está ali também, mas que mostram que é diferente, né? A gente tem um trabalho difícil, mas a gente consegue, através da tecnologia, mostrar que a gente consegue avançar na qualidade.
So she's explaining that in the case of Brazil, it's known as a very large cacao producer. And one of the preconceits about Brazilian cacao is that it's deeply acidic in quality and also smoke tainted. But of course, her experience has been quite different. There are at least 3 producers represented here in this room that produce a very different kind of cacao at a very different level of quality. And this presents a different face of Brazilian cacao to the world.
So in the context of Guatemala, I will say that since we have a strong local consumption, usually of hot cocoa, and usually that cocoa it's made with unfermented beans. So usually the traditional market a long time ago was only focused on unfermented beans because that's like the farmers didn't have to do anything in order to sell their product because the market was already in Guatemala. So now with the change of the market and now access into new markets, the need of fermentation, the need of quality is changing. But at the very beginning, for example, like 5 years ago, when we started working, it was hard for the farmers to adapt the new post-harvest processes, like new fermentations, because it means like they have to invest in facilities, they have to learn, they have to fill some requirements, whereas in the past it was just a matter of harvesting, drying, and just selling to the first person that was there. So that general change in the whole supply chain in Guatemala was difficult at the beginning, and I think that there are still some isolated places that are still trying to understand. But the good thing now is that they saw other examples that were successful, so they are now learning by seeing. I will say like they are the slower adapters, because you know that people like are like they take the risk and they go first and they want to learn, and they even not knowing, they adapt the new techniques. But then now I feel like we are a lot of people believe and start using that new concept, so that helped the country to change. But now the last people, or the slower people in adapting those techniques, are learning because they are watching that something is changing in the country.
Yeah, so there are many countries that come to mind. One would be the last trip that I did, which is Indonesia. Indonesia, which is the third world producer of cacao, but is mostly considered bulk because it is far and wide, mostly unfermented. There is very little incentive for farmers in Indonesia to ferment and to ferment properly. For two things. First, because there is a huge oligopsony, there are only a few buyers who go buy in Indonesia, which gives little bargaining power to the producers. Second is the country branding. Indonesia, having a reputation of exporting poor quality cacao, it is hard to find a chocolate maker who is willing to pay more for an excellent cacao coming from Indonesia. Why is that? Because they're going to brand their bar or their chocolate as Indonesia, or Indonesia origin, or made with Indonesian beans. And that brings a reputation, because 90% of the production from Indonesia is in that category. So there is this preconception, the acceptation that Indonesia cacao is of poor quality, and that makes the few farmers who do the extra work, go the extra mile to invest in post-harvest facilities, to train themselves in making good cacao, good fermented cacao, to get in the international market, getting there into market access. It's very difficult for them to market their beans. It's difficult for us traders to market their beans as well because of this reputation. So there is a prejudice against the country, which basically deflates the incentives that we can have to tell the farmers, go and ferment. Well, why should I start investing in there if there is no opportunity for my cacao to be sold at a higher price?
I've been thinking very hard on the issues with reputation. I don't think we have much. No, we do. And that's a major issue, because Ivory Coast is not all about misery, and it's not about problems. There's a lot of cacao coming out of Ivory Coast that's being produced by very hardworking producers that are very dedicated to what they do. It's a family business. Many people inherited their plantations from their fathers and from their grandfathers. It's great to go with these people out in the field, and you see them tell what their grandfather planted over there, what they planted here, and what their fathers planted and what they're planting. So there's a lot of passion as well for cacao in Ivory Coast. The thing that we're struggling with is that people think that the image is that they can't really produce quality flavor, and that there is nothing really special about the flavor profile in Ivory Coast. And I mean, like I said, I'm not a cacao expert, so don't believe me, but we're working with two companies, major companies. One of them is thinking about 50,000 tons a year, that really prefer the Ivory Coast profile over other profiles for their specific market. So it's not me telling you that. We have got two companies that are really interested, and they buy significant amounts. So there is something about the flavor profile in Ivory Coast if we can get it out. And that's the issue. And how do you get it out in a consistent way? And how do we make farmers understand what it means if you ferment it on the wrong way, if you dry it on the asphalt, or if you dry it on plastic, or if you dry it on the tables, what the effect is, if it rains and you have to re-dry. That's the kind of thing. So there's potentially a lot out there. There's a lot of good producers. There's a lot of pride with a number of producers. So it's not all about misery. Yeah, there's quite a big bunch of the 2 million tons that come out of real good producers and real good producing areas. So that's something we need to work on, and we're trying to work on. That's why I'm here as well, to show that there is something to be done from Ivory Coast. And like I said, not just because I think so, but there is really experts that do a lot of sourcing in the sector. Business people do a lot of sourcing that prefer the flavor profile from Ivory Coast over flavor profiles from other countries. So that's very encouraging, and that's something I think that that makes us move forward.
Thank you. Another question is, we have many people here in the audience who buy cacao, who make chocolate, who retail chocolate, who are very advanced consumers of chocolate, who may not work in the particular areas where you work, but who might be interested to help you with your work. What do you most need from people outside of the places where you're working that will help you succeed?
Shall I start?
Please.
So what I'm looking for is potential buyers and traders that are willing to give us feedback on the flavor profiles that are being developed, on the quality element that we're working on. It makes no sense for us to invest in quality and in flavor profiles and in quality production if there is no market for it. Yeah? So we're looking for companies, for people that say, listen guys, we are potentially interested. Let's see if there maybe in a year's or 2 years time we could start buying. We would like to support you in giving you feedback on the profiles that you are developing, that we're not developing the profiles that are out there that will come out. That's something that has helped us. Some companies have done that. Dandelion has helped us with that. And that's very useful support for us to know if we're on the right track, but also to give feedback to the sector in Ivory Coast about the state of their quality production. Because I think I mentioned it, there is a belief that the quality is also the flavor quality is by far the best in the world, and there is reason to argue that, and there's many people that do argue that. So feedback from the market side is incredibly important for us to make the case also to support change within the sector, but also change in regulations and the support of government to this specific initiative and to this specific segment. So that's what we're looking for.
What I would add on that is because of our experience in what we believe to be a huge bottleneck being knowledge transfer and final user education, I think what we would need is more education and more transfer, having final users, so the people who actually buy the chocolate to eat it, understand that there is a difference between different kind of products. It's one thing to eat chocolate, it's another thing to taste chocolate, to take the time to make a tasting. What is flavor? Flavor education is very important. So anyone who's working in this field, I think, can be a huge help. And also just embracing the different market segments that we have. We were talking about luxury this morning. Luxury having this, what was said earlier, so beliefs being really, really important if you want to have your luxury product working. So working on those beliefs, chocolate and cacao would be very important. Understanding that bulk doesn't per se mean bad, and that there's huge efforts right now about genetics, but that it's not paramount. Paramount would be to change the final user purchase behavior, just to make sure that every producer who produces high quality cacao would find buyer for their production. As I said, we can add as much value as we want to a product. If we're not able to sell it, ultimately the farmer will have either to accept to sell it at a lower price, or will have to change. We were talking yesterday about sustainability. Sustainability from the point of view of the farmer, to some extent, might mean stops producing cacao. So if we want them to stay in cacao, we have to make sure that whatever quality they're producing, they find a market for it. And we are convinced there is a market for every kind of cacao. We just have to make sure that the matchmaking flows.
So I agree with the flavor part, the feedback that the farmers receive from the flavor part, but also the same way as the chocolate makers or the chocolate processors that they feel when they travel to a producing countries because they want to learn about post-harvest process, fermentation, drying, now the context. I think that is the same need that the farmers feel when he is in the field and he doesn't know or understand the other side. So I think that I am seeing it like in the way that chocolate makers come to a producing country to learn. The same need it's to the farmer to understand, because for example sometimes we or the farmers or the feedback is more fermentation or the drying is too quick or I don't know, different factors. But in order to the farmer to learn and to really understand why he needs to be slow in drying or pay attention to fermentation, he would better understand if he actually goes and he sees the process and then he understands why it's acidic or why fermentation matters. Or for example, if it's a problem of broken beans, so having him hands-on the process, he will understand that's why I need my cocoa clean. That's why I can't mix small beans with big beans. That's why I can't have flat beans, because that will change my roasting taste. So, and then having the farmers or the key actors on the field understand that will be a better way of embracing the quality standards or the quality needs that the chocolate makers does. So I feel like that's another way of seeing the same need that the chocolate makers feel is the same felt in the other side.
Eu concordo com todos vocês. Eu faço um convite para nos conhecerem, né? O Brasil é uma origem muito positiva, principalmente ambientalmente, né? A gente tem muita coisa para oferecer. Somos um país que gostamos de trocar, né, de receber essa ajuda. Acho que isso é muito importante, trocar nesse mercado. O mercado é um mercado muito interessante. O consumidor vem buscando conhecer novas origens, novos produtos. A gente é uma origem muito exótica e a gente também precisa dessa troca. Então, que o produtor de chocolate entenda o que é a nossa origem, busque informação. O Centro de Inovação está à disposição hoje para isso, para compartilhar informação com vocês e para que a gente possa aprender o que é que o mercado quer. Se é alguma mudança na qualidade, no padrão, como a gente pode mudar para oferecer um produto que caia no gosto do consumidor internacional.
She's in agreement with much of what has been said already and is particularly interested to invite you all to visit Brazil, to explore what is possible there. The Cocoa Innovation Center is open and available to share information, and she believes very strongly that exchange is fundamental to this cross-cultural understanding around cacao quality. In a similar vein to what Adriana has just shared with us, I'm curious, do any of you have models from a country where you're not working that you find particularly inspiring or amazing? Maybe something you're jealous of and wish you could have in your own country? And if so, why? What is it?
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I really like the way that Madagascar keep tracks of each lot. For example, they are very careful when they are sending a lot of, when they are exporting it, they are making sure that it met the requirements that or the expectation that the market it's like expecting or the market is waiting for. So I think that they are really good at it, and I believe, if I'm not wrong, it's because they have like an entity or something that certifies that quality at a national level, or kind of an entity that does that work. It's something that we don't have in Guatemala. Most of that work is done by the exporters, which is a really good job. They really keep track of the quality, and they are actually playing a big role in Guatemala because they are ensuring it. But I don't know if it's needed or not, but it's something that I like about that country.
I'll answer twofold. First, regarding marketing of really highly priced chocolates. A country where we're not working currently is Japan. And my understanding of the country is that there is a place there for really highly priced chocolates. Not quite sure why. I guess it's cultural. I guess there's some history behind that, the rise of this market. But it seems that they really understood that it's okay to go to a luxury store, be it chocolate, food, or any kind of consumption item. It seems that Japan has really understood that having different segments of market is okay, and it's okay to go buy some part of your items at a discount shop. It's okay to buy some others in a very highly priced luxury store, instead of buying 10 bars of chocolate at €1 each, or $1 each, or 1,000 yen each. I would go buy maybe one at 6,000 yen and six. The next in the coming weeks, I will go to buy the cheap ones. I think this versatility of their consumption behavior is really interesting. And as far as Cacao is concerned, obviously I can't really talk about a country I'm not working with, otherwise I wouldn't answer the question. But yesterday Greg mentioned that I really have to meet someone from Dominican Republic, because apparently there is an infrastructure that helps the farmer really get the beans, to get the training, to get the beans properly fermented, to get them out of the country. So I'm really looking forward to Greg's contact me, and hopefully we'll be developing a new origin soon.
Well, I got a few countries, because I'm really annoyed that there is good quality cacao, recognized cacao, come from Ghana, Togo, and Sierra Leone, which are countries that are, well, Ghana is of course a big producer, but the other two are really not. So it shows that it's very well possible anywhere in West Africa to get good quality cacao out. It's all a matter of having good systems on quality control. Ghana is known for better quality also because of the system of quality control is quite different from Ivory Coast. So that means that we need to invest more in the sector organizing its own quality control. But it's really annoying not to see single origin chocolate out in the market, in the specialty market from Ivory Coast. It irritates me, and it's really annoying. And I think we will be able to do something about that. So those countries have managed to do that, and I'm sure Ivory Coast will be able to do that very soon as well.
Eu também gosto. Acho que vários exemplos nos movem, né? Mas, para ser diferente, acho que eu vou citar o caso do Peru, que é um país muito próximo ao Brasil, mas que fez um trabalho de reconhecimento de flavor muito importante. Né, eles foram para campo, rastrearam suas qualidades e fazem um trabalho de marketing positivo. Eles também têm um movimento de Bean to Bar que está crescendo, Tree to Bar, né, com visitas às fazendas, usam do turismo rural como uma forma de diferenciar e de agregar valor. Eu acredito que o Brasil está próximo e pode caminhar também, como o caso do Peru.
She is speaking to the case of Peru as a country that's close to Brazil and that has put an enormous effort into a focus on flavor. It has a strong internal bean-to-bar market, but also attracts external buyers by engaging in rural tourism, the promotion of cacao flavor from Peru, and she sees that as a promising example that Brazil could positively follow given their proximity. Yeah. Okay, so I'd like to open it up for any questions from the audience. I see one hand here with Gabriel. Then we have thanks, Jose.
Yes, you mentioned certification of origin. I would like to know a little bit more if you have experience of a cost and benefits to engage in trying to have a certificate of origin, new label, or is it just another thing, something more? And especially, I wonder if for Ivory Coast it would not be a possibility to break down the issues and perhaps to highlight some specific sub-region to start, and maybe to even try to have a sense of competition, of pride between different producers?
No caso, vou falar sobre a certificação de origem. No caso da certificação de origem, para a gente é muito importante, porque no Brasil, as certificações que existem hoje são o TZ, Rainforest Alliance, que são certificações que não certificam qualidade.
In the case of Brazil, certification for origin has become very important because the only other existing certifications are UTZ or Rainforest Alliance, which have very little to do with quality.
Então, nós usamos a indicação geográfica para construir uma regra de qualidade para o cacau da Bahia. No caso da Bahia, eu posso falar com mais propriedade. E então, nós criamos dentro da IG uma forma de criar controles de qualidade dentro dessa certificação. Então, hoje, a gente, através da indicação geográfica Cacau Sul Bahia, protege qualidade, a origem, né, e a rastreabilidade do cacau do sul da Bahia.
So what they've done in the case of the indication from the south of Bahia is they've created rules that will establish a level of quality that can be expected from that region and that protects quality, traceability, and the origin itself. And this is because this has not previously existed in that area.
A primeira regra de controle de qualidade que existe no Brasil é a indicação geográfica Cacau Sul da Bahia, que nasceu em 2018. Então, só temos um ano disso. Então, isso é uma grande inovação e uma grande forma de proteger a qualidade do nosso cacau.
And this was the first geographic indication created in Brazil, the one in the south of Bahia, that was started just in 2018. It's been 1 year of the project. It's a major innovation that they hope will have strong benefits moving forward.
Well, the competition point is, of course, very strong. I mean, that's something we're trying to do. First of all, at the national level, we're trying to showcase Ghana to Ivory Coast, saying, listen, Ghana, they can do it. It was a great example as well when Greg from Dandelion visited. We took a bar of Sierra Leone to the government leadership, of course. And that's the kind of things we try to do. We try to get a little bit more of sense of, other countries in the region can do it. You're the biggest producer in quantity, but you would definitely be able to do that. So we're trying to use that a little bit also on getting traction and momentum at the government level to support this, because that's one of the problems we faced was export procedures and processes that needs to be adapted to this specific market segment. So we need to work on that as well. At the level of producer, we do see some, of course, interest at the moment from producers that see us working with a number of producers within a cooperative and that say we would like to join. I'm always a bit cautious for that because we first need to make it happen. I mean, it's great to do all this, but if you do it too big and it doesn't get sold, then we are investing a lot of time and money. So the competition is definitely something that we are counting on, of course. If this works on a specific limited volume and we get something moving, that's the moment to see if we can further, let's say, scale that out to others, but not right away go into too big ambitions and having too many people involved without us 100% being sure that this is going to work, because we got the price discussion still going on. Everybody wants better quality, but nobody necessarily wants to pay for that, and better quality requires investments, and the farmers we're working with are not that don't have that big opportunity for investing big time if it doesn't pay back. So we need to be careful, but there is definitely interest from other people within the cooperatives that want to move forward. We haven't talked about a whole region yet. We are now experimenting with 3 different regions because 3 different cooperatives that are interested, because the profiles of those regions are different as well. So that keeps us at least open for let's say a bigger market parties, bigger number of market parties that do or do not like the profiles that we're working on.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for another question. I see one right here. Okay, sorry. I'm misrepresenting. Here we go.
Marlon, creo que la determinación de piracinas para ubicar los cacaos de Guatemala pudiera estar un poquito sesgada porque la concentración puede cambiar por origen, puede cambiar en los procesos de fermentación y obviamente en el tostado, de acuerdo a las características del tostado. Yo creo que usar la relación teobromina-cafeína es mucho más precisa para ubicar no solamente el cacao de Guatemala, sino cualquier otro cacao. Y además es independiente del tostado, de la genética, pero de la genética no, perdón, es independiente del tostado y del proceso de fermentación. Hay en la literatura varias cosas que te pueden ayudar allí.
Muchas gracias, gracias por ese consejo. Cafeína me imagino que tendría que utilizar HPLC para cafeína.
Sí.
Sí, gracias, lo voy a considerar. Y esa era la razón por la que estoy utilizando cacaos o chocolate sin tostar también, porque quería ver cómo el tostado me cambiaba o me incrementaba el contenido de piracinas.
Sí, no hay duda que cambia,
Sí.
pero la relación turbina-cafeína se va a mantener independientemente del tostado o de la fermentación. Y incluso además puede ubicarlo no solamente por tipo de cacao, sino también por origen. Y claro, tiene que tener una base de datos mucho más completa para empezar a diferenciarlo, pero te va a ayudar ahí.
Gracias. Y aprovecho para decir, no quiere ser mi asesor para... Gracias.
gusto.
Muchas gracias.
Con gusto.
Muchas gracias. Okay, we have one more question right
thank,
here in the
thank
front.
you so much for taking my question. So this has been a really interesting discussion. Clearly, in all these different countries, the quality's there, and I can also see that the craftsmanship is also there. Now, my question links to the previous session. How do origin countries capture a higher share of luxury market? No, because let me just make one observation. I'm Honduran. I live in Switzerland, and anytime I want to find a chocolate made in Brazil, I have to look long and hard to find this. I can find all types of luxury items made in Switzerland, but those ones that are made in Brazil or in different origin countries is very difficult. Sometimes they're only sold in very specific outlets, in retail stores, in like the higher end retail stores. So I keep asking myself, like, how do origin countries capture a higher market? And we can see all these luxury brands. If we think of luxury brands around the world, we're going to see like a huge list of European brands, North American brands. And so, yeah, what's next for origin countries?
I think one thing that's very interesting is to differentiate so chocolate made in chocolate producing countries, and then which would state beans from this or that country, and then this new and increasing trend of having cacao producing countries developing their own chocolate making countries. It is increasing, but there are two impediments to their accessing the luxury market. First would sometimes be quality. Perhaps not the quality of the beans, because the beans are of high quality. We can find very nice beans, but quality as in chocolate, the workings of chocolate, the making of chocolates, the different steps of making chocolates. And also because perhaps not every chocolate importing country, so the different markets where there is a luxury there is a market for luxury chocolates, we don't all have the same acceptation of what a good chocolate is, qua texture, for example, qua sweetness. So it would be interesting for those markets, so the chocolates made in cacao producing countries, to select the markets they want to enter based on the product they have to offer. So to make sure that their product fulfills this purpose of fulfilling the wants and needs of the market they want to enter. The second one, as discussed this morning, from what I understood, luxury can be your strategy, but you cannot choose to be a luxury product. So you can build your brand as a chocolate made in Brazil, and we are a luxury chocolate. You can build your strategy around that, but you will need to access and to make sure that those authority speakers in this market speak of your product. You can choose to build your business around it, but you're not the one who's going to choose whether it's going to succeed or not. Whether that's a good thing or not, that's debatable.
Well, for the single origin, I think we already discussed that. If it's produced outside of country, in Ivory Coast, there is, of course, local production of chocolate ongoing. There's at least 5 or 6 local producers. I think the main problem there is that the consistency in the flavor, in the chocolate flavor, is the main problem. So even if there's good beans, Still the whole process of fermentation and drying, etc., the harvesting. So they're positioning themselves also in the higher end local market. The market share, the market of course is very tiny, but there's some tourists and it's something interesting to buy. But the flavor is just, the taste is just not very consistent. So every bar tastes a little bit different from the bar before. So that's something that needs to further develop. So you need to come, if you want to move into the segment, you need to have your supply chain, your production, your quality control in order and under control. And I think that's what we're trying to support some of those companies with, as well as some of the cooperatives with. And before having that at a certain level, I wouldn't want to try to be too ambitious to move and get a bigger market share.
Da nossa forma, do mesmo jeito. Trabalhar em busca da consistência, da qualidade e poder contar, né, essa história para vocês que não conhecem essa qualidade. Então, estar presente nesses eventos é muito importante e em outros eventos também, participar dos concursos e mostrar realmente o nosso novo momento.
So it's in a similar vein, it's important that they focus still on quality, on consistency, on telling the story of Brazilian cacao and chocolate. And part of the way that they do that is by participating in events like this one and others, competing in awards for chocolate, and otherwise trying to promote Brazilian chocolate abroad. Okay. So we have run out of time for this particular panel, but all of our panelists will be here if you would like to speak with them and learn more from them. Of course, it's impossible to cover everything, but I think we've covered an enormous amount of ground together today. And thank you all so much for your time and your expertise. Okay, muito obrigada.
Before we leave on break, if I might make an announcement, we have a tasting as our last activity of the day to leave you with some theobromine caffeine, some from Côte d'Ivoire, as a matter of fact. There's a tasting plate outside. Please grab one, choose one, and bring it to the next session in order for us to have our last activity with our last speaker.